Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/spookshow. Then go over to morbidlybeautiful.com, as we are now part of the Morbidly Beautiful Podcasting Network.
It has been established that persons who have recently died have been returning to life and committing acts of murder.
Have you checked the children?
I want to play a game. The box. You opened it. We came.
Here. This is the All-American Spookshow.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the All-American Spookshow podcast. I'm Josh and I'm joined here with Donny.
Hey.
And the Professor Smoak.
Up.
Will couldn't be with us, he's on assignment, but we are here to talk about Donny's choice. It was his time to spin the wheel and the wheel of fate and make his decision, and he chose Phantasm from 1979. So this was one that we had actually, I think we mentioned it before, we had tossed this in on a poll back in October, I believe it was, for November. Yeah, it was for November, and that one, Hellraiser won that poll. I don't remember what.
Yeah, I completely forgot about that.
Yeah, you mean when you decided or made the decision?
I didn't remember it until you had mentioned it.
Yeah, it was on the poll with Nightmare on Elm Street, and I don't remember what the final breakdown was, like first, second, third place, but Hellraiser won that poll, so that's the series that we've been we've dipped into a couple times, and I think we're going to hit again on episode 109 here in the next month or so. For the wild card episode, just to get us back in the, because this new rotation we're doing with the horror movies now. But so yeah, this week we're going to be talking about Phantasm. I guess before we get into it, I'll go ahead and toss out some of the usual information. Also, we want to mention right off the top before I get into this that we are now part of the Morbidly Beautiful Podcasting Network. You might have heard that right off the top of the episode, but I'll just go ahead and mention it here that we are now formally in on the gag over over at morbidlybeautiful.com. So go visit their website and go listen to the other I guess sister and brother podcasts now that are in the Morbidly Beautiful podcast.
There's quite a bit, and there's I'll tell you, man, they've really done it well over there, compiling all of the content, and they've been great with us. Very very gracious, and just from day one.
And they have a sharp website, so we encourage you to go check it out and go listen to the other podcasts on the network and everything. So, but if you want to contact us, you can email us at allamericanspookshow@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter at @AASpookshow. Of course, we're over on Instagram, Slasher, Facebook, YouTube. You can find us on all of those by searching for All American Spook Show, but you can also go down to the Linktree link down in the show notes. There's links to all these things. Plus, we have a TeePublic shop where we've got logoed merchandise, cool designs. And, of course, the big one is our Patreon. Patreon.com/AASpookshow, where every month we've got Professor's retro reviews. Those are written articles. We've got Crapsterpiece Theater, which is our first big hit over there. We've got Spookshow Rewind.
Stop. Spookshow Rewind.
Yeah, that's terrible. Spookshow Rewind, which is much better. We have those every month where, it gives Donny a chance to go back. We go back in the archives of the first episodes in order, way before Donny was on. It gives him a chance to talk about those movies, watch those movies, us to revisit that stuff. So that's a lot of fun. All that stuff can be found over on Patreon.
I do just want to interject a little, if I can, here. So you had my very first episode was when you had me on as a guest for The Conjuring 2.
Yep.
And just before that episode, you guys did Monster Squad.
Yep.
And I didn't find out until we were recording. God damn it, man. I was so pissed. I was like, what? You did Monster Squad?
Son
you
of a
asked me
bitch.
on for this?
Now, that will be a while before we get to that, too, just because
it'll be a bit.
We're doing these once a month, and we're only up to, the 4th? So I guess number 5 is next, and I'm pretty sure that's Return of the Living Dead.
It is.
That will be next, and we'll do that in the month of May. But we got a while to go before we get back around to Monster Squad. But I remember. I think we got your opinion on Monster Squad on that one, and you were mad that we that we had just done it.
So I was like, I cannot believe it.
Unfortunately, too, like we've talked about that before. We had a bad string of like a couple of shitty movies right when you came on. You know, like, it was a couple we all were kind of like, about, for the first couple episodes, 2 or 3 episodes you were on. It was like that. So
yeah, but
yeah,
it's been good.
Before we get into Phantasm and we listen to the trailer and all the background and everything for that, Smoak, this is the first time you've been on in a couple weeks. You took a journey around the world in 80 days. You've been gone for a while. So in your absence, we did Deathgasm and we did Over the Top, our first cannon fodder. You said you have not as yet had a chance to sit down and rewatch Deathgasm, right? But you did get a chance to watch Over the Top, right?
Yeah. I watched Deathgasm back when it first came out, but 6 or 7 years ago. So did not get a chance to watch that one, so I'll update that on one of our future episodes. But Over the Top, yeah, I did rewatch that one again recently, and it's just as I thought it was going to be again, which was fun because I mean it's canon film, and it's one of those canon films that even if it's not top notch as far as the script and everything in it, it's still very fun to watch. Sylvester Stallone, which by the way, y'all might have mentioned this. I haven't had a chance to listen to the episode yet either, but I don't know if y'all mentioned anything about Don Johnson being.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
I can't really see that. I don't know.
It would have completely changed it.
Yeah. I mean, you got that. I mean,
I don't know if it would have. I don't know if it would have made it any better or worse, but it definitely would have changed it.
It definitely would have made it even less believable as far as Don Johnson taking on what's his name?
Bull Hurley.
Hurley.
Yeah, Fubar guy.
That would have been a little bit less believable. I mean, that guy is huge. Arm wrestling, I guess a little bit more with technique and stuff, more than just full on strength or whatever. But still, I don't see Don Johnson beating Grizzly.
Well, we talked about that during the episode. It was already a stretch with Stallone, right? Like, I think I said it in that one. Like, a dude the size of Bull Hurley would have broke Stallone's arm off and shoved it up his ass. He's like, he's 2 Stallones, man.
Yeah,
you would think.
Yeah. I mean, not the most believable, of course. And even just taking the fact of arm wrestling itself is not that thrilling when you're putting it in a film and trying to make it very,
That being said, I think they did a really good job of making that as exciting as it could possibly be, right?
Yeah, I don't think you can make it any more exciting.
No.
There's many ways you can make it less exciting, but I don't think you could have made it any more exciting than Cannon did. And then the whole backstory with him and his son and everything. I mean, it was a touching story and everything. So I mean, you had all that going on too. For me to give my rating on it, I would say.
Now, wait. Now remember, on this one we do cannonballs. So. I'm not going to influence your rating by telling you what we said just yet. I'm going to wait to hear what you say. But basically, it's the same thing, 0 to 5, like 0 to 5 stars, but except now we're doing 0 to 5 cannonballs. But I will say this is a different scale. It's canon. Just keep that in mind. So go ahead.
I was going to mention that too. I was going to mention this is my canon sliding scale.
Yeah, I think we're all working on the canon scale here. So with that in mind, go ahead.
I have to give it 3 3.25 cannonballs.
Okay, so now
canon scale. If we were rating this outside the canon scale, it would get a little bit lower than that.
Well, I really don't know what to make of that because what I'm about to tell you. Austin, remember now we're gonna have a recurring segment on Cannon Fodder where we had the author of the Cannon Film Guide, Austin Trunick. He kind of started it, and we all the cannonball kept rolling downhill with us. Kind of happened this way. With Austin, all 4 of us gave it 5 cannonballs. So
5 cannonballs? Oh, yeah. So pretty much everybody gave it 5?
No, all 4 of us.
Yeah, that was not a total of 5.
Yeah. All 5 of us, or I'm sorry, all 4 of us, each individually gave it 5 cannonballs.
Yeah, Will, Austin, Josh, and myself.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So that's interesting.
Wow. Okay.
So yeah, I guess this is going to be the scale. Like I said, it's going to be whacked out. It's not going to be the normal. I don't think. And me, I'll speak for myself. I kind of went there because I know for a fact there's not a lot of canon movies that I like that much more than this. There are some, but there's probably not going to be many I'm going to say, oh yeah, that was way better than Over the Top. So I think it's pretty high on my scale as far as canon movies are concerned.
As we're going to, my canon scale may slide a little bit more than depending on if that's how we're. Because 5, yeah, that would have been. I mean, I guess I could adjust my canon scale for 5s when we're doing these. Not for this one necessarily this time around, but I mean for I'll keep that in mind huge sense. We're like we're not gonna, I guess, use canon to. We're not gonna not necessarily give out 5s like we do on the other one unless they're really warranted when it comes to canon.
I really think with these little sub-series that we're doing, you're going to see that there's somewhat of a sliding scale between all of them. Like the cult corner movies are probably going to be measured in a slightly different way than the canon movies, than the horror movies, etc. Right? So there you go. That's Smoak's thoughts on Over the Top, and like I said, we'll get his thoughts on Deathgasm when he's had a chance to sit down and watch it again. And of course, since Will's not here this week for Phantasm, we'll get his thoughts on this one as soon as he gets back. So we'll leave that there for now, and we'll go ahead and toss to the trailer for Phantasm from 1979.
Phantasm. Is it a nightmare? Phantasm. Is it an illusion? Phantasm. Is it an evil?
You have to take me home.
But why?
No questions. You must take me home.
Phantasm. Is it a fantasy? Phantasm. Is it alive?
There was nobody driving.
Whatever it is, if this one doesn't scare you, you're already dead. Phantasm.
All right, so there you have it. That's the trailer for Phantasm. So I guess we can kind of go back and forth here just for a second. Donnie, since this was your choice, this isn't the first time you've seen this, right?
Certainly not. Man, I have so many great memories of watching this when I was a kid. This movie scared the shit out of us. I mean, even though that we didn't see it, in its full uncut version, we watched it on TV, and it still scared the shit out of us, even though they cut it up as much as they did.
Yeah, but if you think about it, we'll get into that later. I'm sure I wouldn't think there's a whole massive amount here they would have cut out of it, other than the nudity, right, and maybe some language.
Yeah.
What else would they have cut? There wasn't anything truly gory, I don't recall.
Yeah, still though, like like even in its full. Yeah.
My point is, even like
version.
the made-for-TV cut can't be any better than, say, a PG-13, because this was rated R. Mm-hmm. So yeah, you probably saw most of it, even on the TV version. So yeah, it stands to reason it would have scared the shit out of you when you're 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, however old you were when you watched it.
Yeah, let's see. Yeah, it would have been probably 9, 10, 11, something like that.
Myself, it's been a long, like I've seen it before, but it's been a long time. Sitting down to watch it from beginning to end this time around might as well have been the first time, because it's been so long.
Yeah.
That I've watched this one. And I've never watched any of the other sequels, which we'll get into, how many sequels there were.
Oh, really?
I've never watched any of the other ones.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, this is...
Oh, yeah.
I've seen a...
Yeah, that's right. Because we talked about that where you said you weren't sure if you saw the second one or not, but you haven't seen it, right?
No, I don't believe I have. I don't think I've seen any
of the others. I've seen 1, 2, and 3. I have not seen 4 or the others.
That's where I've seen those first 3, and 4 I didn't watch it. Part 5 picked up on DVD when it came out, but still I haven't watched it. That was only, a few years? That was shortly after... it came out shortly, either right after or right before Angus Scrimm's death, because that was his last movie, I guess.
2016.
Right? Yeah. Yeah, I've even got the first one on Blu-ray, and I'm pretty sure I've got 2, 3, 4, maybe something like that on maybe even 5 on DVD, and just never sit down and watched it. There's a lot like that for me though. I own it, like I've got it, and then I never fucking sit down and watch it. So I don't know what it says about me, but anyways, Smoak, what about you? What's your history with it?
I don't recall the first time I saw it, but I know it was sometime back in the video rental days in the '80s, and I liked it the first time I saw it. I thought it was interesting. It was different. Different vibe to it. I don't know if it was that surrealistic kind of, thing it's got going on that we'll get into as we get into the movie. And then Angus Scrimm is a tall man. He frightened me as a kid. Boy,
That's awesome.
This is imposing, and we'll get into that too. I'm not going to go into all that right here as far as like how tall he was and what they did to make him even seem taller and whatnot in the movie. But he was an imposing character, and especially in that one scene. I mean, well, there's plenty of scenes in here, but there's a scene where what's the kid's name right now? It's
Mike.
Is it Billy? Mike. Where he's seeing him walk across the street in broad daylight in front of the ice cream truck right there. The fog from the ice cream truck coming out, and the music comes in, and he stares right at him. I mean, but like I said, we'll get into it. Just that scene right there was one that's like kind of burned into my mind from when I was a kid and I saw it. So yeah, loved it from the first time I've seen it, and I've seen it quite many times afterwards. This was the first time that I've rewatched it in quite a little bit of time, a few years. So, but just as good as I remembered. It gets better each time you watch it, I think.
All right, so some of the background information that I pulled for this one, and I'm sure you guys have a lot more to add to it. It has multiple titles, such as we do sometimes when this information is available to us.
Yeah.
It's also known as the working title. The U.S. working title for it was Morningside. In Argentina, it was called Phantasma. In Australia, India, and New Zealand, and maybe even in another couple of countries, it was released as The Never Dead.
Yeah, I did see that. Yeah.
And then in Pakistan, it was titled Zombie.
In Australia, the reason they called it The Never Dead, they didn't want to confuse it. There was a popular sex comedy at that time called Phantasm with an F. So they called it The Never Dead.
They could have just said it's Phantasm, get the F out, something like that. But no, they just went with The Never Dead.
Get the F out.
Which, The Never Dead is a clever title for a horror movie, right? Maybe not so much this one, but, just overall. It's kind of like, it's one of those titles that's right there in front of your face. Like, something should have been called that. Kind of like Halloween, right? Nothing was called Halloween until Halloween. You're like, oh, yeah, well, that was pretty fucking obvious, But it was released March 28th, 1979 by New Breed Productions, and it was distributed by Avco Embassy Pictures. It was rated R. Total runtime of 1 hour and 29 minutes. On IMDb, it is listed as a horror/sci-fi, so that's pretty appropriate. It was filmed in various locations around Los Angeles and Oakland, California. That's where the cemetery was, by the way, the Morningside Cemetery. That was in Oakland, somewhere outside of Oakland. Yeah. For a budget of $300,000. And the worldwide gross, I guess if you add up all the, different releases in multiple countries and everything, it grossed around $22 million. So, needless to say, very profitable. Yeah, very profitable. It was actually nominated for Best Horror Film at the 7th Annual Saturn Awards. So this will be for 1979, but the awards were in July of 1980. It was nominated for Best Horror Film, and I will give you the other nominees because these are always interesting to me. The Mafu Cage. Smoak, you know anything about it? I've never fucking heard of it. The M-A-F-U Cage. Mafu Cage.
Mafu Cage? No. I mean, I've heard the title, but don't know anything about it.
Yeah, I've never even heard the title, so you got one up on me there. Love at First Bite.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, that's a comedy, right? Isn't that Leslie Nielsen or some shit? Or am I thinking of that one, like Dracula Dead and Loving It or some shit? What am I thinking of?
Oh, yeah, that's Dracula Dead and Loving It. Yeah. This one was George Hamilton.
Yeah, George Hamilton. You're right. The Amityville Horror, that little unknown flick. And the actual winner of the Best Horror Film in that Saturn Award was Dracula, the 1979 version with Frank Langella. That's what won Best Horror over Phantasm and the Amityville Horror. So thought that was interesting. I'm really surprised it beat the Amityville Horror at least, right? Like you might could see something as a mainstream release beating Phantasm, but Amityville Horror, surprising, but there you go.
Yeah.
Did you guys have anything else? I mean, like I'll go through the cast here in just a second, but before we dip into that, did you guys have anything?
So I did see where Entertainment Weekly ranked this as the 17th scariest movie of all time. Whether I agree with that or not, I mean, 17. Like, is that 17 out of 1,000 or 17 out of 50, or is it,
I guess that's out of every movie ever released. I don't know, but
every movie. Yeah. Well, I guess maybe was it the Mafu?
Yeah.
I don't know.
The Mafu Cage.
Mafu Cage. Yeah. Yeah. Who knows?
I don't know. That's interesting. I mean,
I know about that name. It's because of the ridiculous title. Like I said, I have no idea what the Mafu Cage is.
Yeah.
Hearing it.
Yeah. Well, that's definitely one. Once you hear it, you're like, yeah, that's in the old brain pan there. I don't know
Background information, I don't really have anything. I mean, anything else before we get into the cast and all that.
You mentioned that like a 17th scariest or whatever. I really think that's got to be relative to when and where you saw it.
Yeah, and also what edition of Entertainment Weekly,
Well, you're watching this movie in 2022. It's probably not really that fucking scary, right? But in 1979, holy shit, this might have been, like you said, when you were a kid, you watched this and it terrified you, right? So, like,
scared the shit.
Yeah, to me, that just depends on when and where you are in your life when you saw it, as opposed, to see where it's ranked as scariest movies or whatever. But
dude, we would make aluminum foil balls and throw them at each other, thinking Phantasm. It's like Phantasm.
That's exactly what I thought you were gonna do. Like, when you throw it, you have to say Phantasm. Phantasm.
Gosh.
And that makes as much sense as it did in the movie, to be honest with you. I guess we should go into Don Cascarelli a little bit. And honestly, Smoak, he's probably worth doing a spotlight on someday, right?
Yeah, I would think so.
I mean, plus just his whole wide variety of styles of movies, too, that he's had his hand in.
Yeah, I mean,
of genres.
Just some of the top flicks that, just on IMDb, best known for. Bubba Hotep, of course, the Phantasm series. John Dies at the End, he was a writer on that. The Beastmaster.
That's a favorite of mine that I can't wait to get to. But anyways, I digress.
Yeah. I mean, he only has 13 directing credits, but almost all of them have some, as opposed to, like, say, a couple music videos. And he actually did one of the Masters of Horror, Incident on and Off a Mountain Road. He did one of the episodes.
I haven't got to see all of those. I haven't seen every episode, but that one I do remember. And I thought that was a pretty strong episode of the ones I've seen, which was most of the first season anyway.
But yeah, the first four Phantasm series, first four Phantasm movies he directed. I think the fifth one he was just a producer on, but he was a writer and a producer on all of those. Like I said, the Beastmaster. He even directed a Dio video, the last in line in 1984.
I love that video, and I know that video like right away. It's pretty memorable video once you've seen it, but and now I know why.
Yeah. John Dies at the End was the last movie that he has directed. That was in 2012, so it's been 10 years. But they have announced another one called Bubba Nosferatu: Curse of the She-Vampires. So I don't know where that's at in the in production as far as like actually happening or not, but that has been announced. But yeah, it really hasn't done much over the last decade or so. So here's the hoping that we get some more from Don Cascarelli eventually.
Either of y'all seen John Dies at the End?
No. I've seen that movie. Like the title's like, oh yeah, that's interesting. At least the title's gonna pull you in. But I've never sit down and watched it. No.
Yeah, it's better than what you would think you would be expecting from a movie from somebody who's already kind of past their prime in the horror world. Like when you think of John Carpenter or even Wes Craven before he died. Making certain movies later on in their lives not necessarily weren't the best. But this one I wasn't expecting much when I saw it, and it was definitely surprising.
Yeah. The movie stars A. Michael Baldwin as Mike. He's basically the main kid. What age would you say he's probably about 15, 16 or so, something like that in this movie?
I would probably, probably about that. I mean, shit, he was driving the car, so I would imagine. Actually, you know what? I think his real age was 14.
Mm-hmm.
I think his real age was 14 because I did read something about him, learning to drive. While he was shooting the movie.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I think that was it.
He was also a teen idol in Japan. Just a quick little trivia note there. Michael A. Baldwin. Or A. Michael Baldwin, sorry. It stars Bill Thornberry as Jody. That's his older brother throughout the movie. Really, mostly just these Phantasm movies is all you would know the guy from. He even has a credit on the soundtrack for this movie, Sitting Here at Midnight. It has Reggie Bannister as Reggie. That's funny, right? Fuck it. We're not going to use our imaginations. We're just going to use your real name. Okay. Sounds good. Now, he has 57 acting credits, and they go all throughout. I mean, he's still active today, still in random films and stuff like that. But yeah, mostly you'd know him from the Phantasm series. And really, the only other one worth mentioning in my book is the actor that plays the tall man, and that's Angus Scrimm.
Yeah, Angus Scrimm is actually his stage name. His real name is Lawrence Rory Guy. But yeah, more on him a little later.
Yeah, unfortunately, he passed back in January of 2016, so that's been, a little over 6 years ago. That was at the age of 89, so unfortunately, he's no longer with us. But yeah, I mean, like, really, just the Phantasm series would be the main thing, although he was in a ton of other things.
He was, yeah.
56 acting credits on IMDb, including that early 2000 series, Alias. He was in that, and he had a role in one of the Masters of Horror episodes, that one that Don Cascarelli did, Incident on and Off a Mountain Road. He was in that one. Tons of other things, but yeah, like the Phantasm series is his lasting, mark on the horror genre for sure.
Contribution.
Yeah.
And crew, I'll mention one. We'll get into maybe a little bit of details on that I have a little bit later. But one person you did, or not person, but one thing you didn't mention that's an important cast member is the car.
Oh.
That 1961 Black Plymouth Barracuda is a cast member in his own right in this movie. It's just a badass thing, and it's got some great scenes with it. And again, that I can go into a little bit later as far as some of the interesting things about that.
Now, this movie, like we have alluded to, and we'll go ahead and lay it out here, it did spawn 4 more sequels after this. Phantasm 2 came out in July of 1988. Phantasm 3, Lord of the Dead, came out in May of 1994. Phantasm 4, Oblivion, came out in October of 1998. And then, basically, I guess the series finale, unless they decide to pick it up one of these days, and I'm sure they will. But to the point, Phantasm Ravager was the last one that came out, and that was in October of 2016. I don't know how much further this can go without Angus Scrimm, right? Because I'm pretty sure he was in that last one.
Yeah. He was in the last one, the final one.
Yeah, so, like I said, I don't know if they'd want to continue it or how much they can continue it without him. I'm sure they could if they want to, but I don't know if it's one of those deals where, like, you know what, let's just leave it since he's no longer with us. I don't know, but since Don Cascarelli is still around, maybe one of these days, it gets picked back up. Who knows? But that's where we left it with the 5th one, Phantasm Ravager, in 2016. And I'm sure we will get to those other 4 movies, sooner or later.
Why fuss and fret about dinner? Why not have it right here? Yes, this drive-in offers everyone in the family a real picnic treat for dinner. We've got delicious sandwiches with all the trimmings and your other dinner favorites, plus whatever you want to drink, hot or cold. Come early before the show starts, or eat while you're being entertained, or at intermission time. So why fuss? Give your family a tasty dinner at this drive-in.
For you, the listeners of the All-American Spook Show podcast, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service. So I just went in on Audible and typed in Phantasm just to see what would come up, and here we go. Phantasm Exhumed, The Unauthorized Companion by Dustin McNeil. It's knocking on 9 hours long, so if you want to get into, I'm assuming that's a deep dive into all things Phantasm, there's at least one big option there. Just a quick glance down. Well, we have another one here called Further Exhumed, The Strange Case of Phantasm Ravager by Dustin McNeil. That one's a little over, almost 4.5 hours long, so that's another one that he did for Phantasm. And I'm looking to see if this guy this particular guy has actually done some other things other than Phantasm. Like he did a book on Jaws, Freddy vs. Jason, couple on Halloween. So yeah, it looks like he's got some cool things there on Audible. So if you want to look at some work by Dustin McNeil or these 2 books that we found on Phantasm here, looks like some nice deep dives. You can go over to Audible, and that's audibletrial.com/spookshow. Again, that's audibletrial.com/spookshow for your free audio book. So that actually sounds pretty cool. I might have to check one of those out myself eventually. especially the further down the rabbit hole we get with the Phantasm series one of these days. Look at it as a companion book, Donnie, to our adventures here with Phantasm.
Yeah, you know what? To each their own. I've tried to do audiobooks. I cannot. I can't. And I guess I would kind of have to. I guess it's similar to finding a podcast that you can listen to on the regular.
Like ours. Like ours.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
You have to kind of connect with the person that's talking or narrating or whatever. If you don't, you're just not going to enjoy it, and you're going to turn it off.
True.
So each audiobook I've tried, I've done exactly that.
It's kind of like why our listens and downloads go up when Will's not on here. We've done no math or analytics on that. We have
don't
no
know
way of proving that.
We'll never hear this.
But yeah, that's a fact. I don't know how many of y'all actually sit here and listen to this. After we record these and put them
I am my own worst critic. I have I have horrendous performance anxiety, but as far as like live shows, whenever we do our live shows, but yeah. Awful.
To me, the live shows are the easiest because, well, if you fuck up, you fuck up. Just keep going. You know what I mean? Like,
and you don't have to editing it, right?
Yeah, like
exactly.
That too, but like. I just mean that, like, well, if you fuck up, you fuck up. You just have to, like, well, shit, that's me, move on, as opposed to when you're just recording stuff, and we record a lot of shit, you're like, fuck, let's do it again. Fuck, let's do it again. So, like, it's a whole thing, but if it's live, man, I'm just like, well, that's me, moving on, but either way, everybody deals with things differently, and we all have our roles.
Since we're on the topic of books, since we did the little blurb there for audiobooks and whatnot, might as well take this time because I don't know if I'll remember to get back to it, but that there was some misconception that Phantasm was based on a novel. And the reason of that is because there is a novel out there in a very limited run, but it was first and foremost a script by Don Cascarelli, and but his mom, who was a writer, took the script and wrote a novelization of it in a limited run of like 500 copies. It was like 2000 something, I think, when it came out. 2000, limited to 500 copies, and it sold out real quick. And then from time to time, it'll pop up on eBay, probably from some crazy price because it never got reprinted. But that's the misconception. Some people will say, "Well, Phantasm is based on a novel," but no, it was a screenplay and a movie. Then the novel was written afterwards. And if you want to look for it, you can probably find it from time to time, but it's probably cost you an arm and a leg. Apparently, but for anybody really interested in reading the first 9 chapters. Apparently, it's available in an old, and you can tell it's old because this is an angelfire.com link.
Oh, wow.
Remember Angelfire?
Yeah.
Lord.
Yeah, apparently you can find it at angelfire.com. And rather than me just read out this whole thing, you can probably just Google Phantasm novel Angelfire link, and there's like the first 9 chapters on this. Anybody who's seriously interested in it. And if you're really serious, you can look for it out there somewhere, and it's probably going to cost you an arm and a leg, though. But it is one out there.
If it's only limited to 500 copies, I can only imagine.
500 copies ever published and never reprinted. So.
Wow. That's cool, though.
But the confusion over the fact of whether it was a novel or a movie.
All right, so the movie itself starts with basically a couple having sex in the cemetery.
Yeah.
I
know. Which is how you start every horror movie,
0 to 60 in fucking 2 seconds, man. Just bam, here's a couple having sex in the cemetery, and that they actually call the woman in this scene. They call her in the credits the lady in lavender. She basically picks up a knife and then stabs the dude. The dude that she's having sex with, his name is Tommy.
Yeah, just something I had noticed. Well, I'm sorry, I was actually looking into that. There was a body double that was used. So basically, you could say there were stunt tits. Because they.
That's not unusual, though. You do hear that quite a bit. Like,
you
might have an actress that they think is perfect for the role. She doesn't want to be nude, so they bring in they bring in the stunt tits and or whatever what have you, and then whatever.
Something else. It was just the way that it was kind of shot. It looked like she was laying on top of him, and then like she was straddling him.
Yeah, she's just kind of like. They're just going to town, but in a weird position. She's just they're just flat on top of each other, and all you can see is legs. and they're just, oh baby, oh baby, and then and then she picks up a knife and just fucking stabs the dude dead. So you go to his funeral, and this is where you're introduced to friends of Tommy, the recently departed, Jody and Reggie. So basically, there's this whole thing where like they think Tommy has committed suicide, but we all know really he was stabbed by some random blonde lady in a fucking cemetery. Meanwhile, Jody's little brother Mike is like creeping around in the bushes, and then he sees the tall man pick up the casket by himself. Meanwhile, there's like 6 dudes that had just loaded this thing out, right? And then like tall man comes along and just picks up the casket and just tosses it into the back of the hearse. So immediately he's like, "What the fuck?" I should say too, there's a lot of weird cuts and edits in this movie, and maybe that's just to kind of throw you off of like, what the fuck am I watching? You know, like I'm sure it's all by design, but there's a lot of that here right from the beginning. So you have to kind of wrap your brain around that it feels like it's jumping around a little bit. Basically, there's a whole series of Mike following Jody everywhere he goes. Like everything he does, Mike is following him around. Even when he goes out to have sex, 15 minutes later with the lady in lavender out in the cemetery, there's fucking, Mike again following him. He gets spooked in the woods and runs away. And then there's this weird thing where like he's pulling his pants up, but he's still got the chick's underwear in his mouth. Hold on, I gotta go catch my brother,
Yeah, my brother is something wrong with my brother.
It's my brother. Oh.
So they got like a weird relationship.
Well, I think part of that too was is there a little bit of narration where he's talking about how his brother is going to be leaving to go to college?
There's a thing there where Jody's supposed to be leaving, and I guess Mike has a hang up about this because he doesn't want him to leave him.
Maybe, yeah. Or he's like trying to get every last second he can from him before he has to leave and go off.
That's there. Yeah, but still, he just follows him everywhere. And even later in the movie, when Mike tells him just to, all right, you stay the fuck right here, and then Jody still finds a way to, or I'm sorry, vice versa. Jesus Christ, I'm gonna get these two dudes mixed up.
Movie, basically.
Yeah. Mike keeps showing back up, even though Jody told him to sit still. Like you said, all the way to the end. But essentially, like eventually, they go to this mausoleum and. There's a fucking silver sphere flying through the air, which is all part of the weirdness of this thing. Is never really explained, right? Like, nothing is explained. I guess the dwarves and stuff a little bit later on are explained a little bit, but it's still weird, right? Like the whole setup and not much of a payoff there.
Yeah.
But you get to see the sphere flying through the air, and this is after like some dude catches it in the face, right? Wasn't it like a caretaker or something?
Caretaker.
Yeah. He's just walking through the.
The blood spraying,
Yeah. Which I guess that would be the goriest part of the whole movie, right? Really, if you think back on it.
Yeah, probably so.
Mm-hmm.
And for good measure, then he pisses himself on the floor, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
is that what that was? Because I mean, I just figured it was blood.
He just pisses himself.
Yeah. Which I guess that's about as accurate as it would be, right? If something.
Yeah.
That's pretty much what would happen to you.
Thrown in there,
Yeah. Usually it's just blood and gore, and they don't really address the fact that you would lose all of your bowel movements. Right? You would just lose. You just start shitting and pissing everywhere if something like that happened to you.
If you were in a mausoleum and this big silver bladed ball flies at you right into your head. Pulling your brain pad out. I guess you would piss your pants.
Phantasm.
Phantasm. If I had a nickel for every time.
Angus tosses the ball in his head. Phantasm.
And then he just smiles and puts his thumb up, at the camera at the end. Man, that was fucking weird. Except we get a arguably a slightly weirder ending, but we'll get into that here in a minute. Mike, there's a lot of cat and mouse between the tall man here, like back and forth, and Mike won't leave it alone. Like as soon as it seems like, that was weird, and then he breaks back into the damn funeral home and back into the cemetery. He just keeps going over there and messing around, and finds stuff.
Who breaks into a fucking funeral home now? Who does that shit?
Well, 13-year-old Mike, or however old he is, he does.
Dumbass.
I got. While we're talking about that, real quick, I think this is just the torturous things we used to do as a kid, but maybe it has something to do with this movie or just the fact of mausoleums being scary places anyways. There's a local cemetery and this is teenage years, driving, probably 16 or 17. Local cemetery where they left the mausoleum open. The mausoleum was in the very back of the cemetery. So we took, the group of us, whatever, and we had one guy, and we dared him, hey, I dare you to get out. We pulled up to the mausoleum. I dare you to get out, run all the way back to the back wall, tag the back wall, and come back out again. And so when he went in, then we just took off. Just left the cemetery. And then we drove around a little bit and came back and picked him up later. But yeah, that was a little bit of a probably Phantasm influence there, at least the scariness of just the whole thought of, hey, let's go to the mausoleum, and then we planned this ahead of time that we were going to just take off.
So anyways, Mike is being chased by the tall man, and he slams the door, and then the tall man's fingers get cut off, and he takes one of the fingers with him, and then he uses this as proof to show Jody, look, there's some weird shit going on, right? Because there's a fucking finger in a box moving around with the yellow goop in the box.
Yeah.
And then for some reason, the finger turns into what would you say?
I would say it's like a demonic caterpillar.
Yeah, what?
It doesn't make any sense.
And then they fight this thing for like a 5-minute scene. Then Reggie, they're just back and forth with the thing in a blanket, just beating the shit out of him. Reggie walks in, hey guys, blah! And then he gets attacked by the fucking thing, and then they throw it down the garbage disposal. It's just like a whole 5 or 10 minute scene here.
Yeah.
Where they're just fighting this weird demon caterpillar, whatever the fuck it was. Once again, with no explanation, and they don't revisit it at all. This isn't part of what happens throughout the rest of the movie. There's just this one random
whole time
part.
Reggie is dressed like the good humor man.
Yeah. For the rest of
like an ice
literally
cream.
For pretty much the rest of the movie, he's because he has an ice cream truck. I think at some point they run into one of these dwarves, right? These hooded fucking Ewok Jawa looking
Jawas, yeah.
Dwarf demon
Demonic
dwarf.
Jawas.
Because there's a driverless hearse that's chasing them down the road, and then when they get out to look, there's nobody in it, and then I think that's when they get attacked by one of the dwarves or some shit, and they basically manage to kill one or defeat it or whatever, and then they hide it in the back of Reggie's ice cream truck. Eventually, they basically, once again, there's this back and forth, and then Jody's like, all right, I'm going to go down there to kill the tall man, but he locks Mike up into his room, who eventually finds a way to break out, and I'm sure we'll talk about that, how he gets out of that room here in just a second. And then, of course, he is immediately kidnapped by the tall man, who takes him down to the mausoleum, and Jody basically has to save him from that. And then eventually they go into the room where I guess the tall man does his stuff, and there's a bunch of barrels in there, and I guess they're full of dwarves, right? Or they're full of bodies that will be turned into
formed into them.
Something.
Yeah, just a bunch of black barrels in this white room, and there's these two little tuning fork type deals standing there, and they can he sticks his hand into it, and then he leans into it, and I guess they're looking into hell. I don't know, whatever planet he's from, some parallel
world. I don't know if it's a parallel world or a demonic something or another universe window to another whatever.
Yeah, he can
Arizona.
see in there. It's the New Mexico desert. And basically he sees all these little dwarves, and I guess they completely work out the situation just from this one little peek into this universe, hell, whatever this is. He's like, oh yeah, well, they got the dwarves. They're taking our dead people, making them into dwarves, reanimating them, and then using them as slaves in his little universe, right? They basically figure all this out from just one peek into the hole. But basically there's this big throw down and chase between, Reggie, Jody, and Mike with the tall man. Eventually, Reggie gets stabbed by the lady in lavender, and then tall man chases Mike out into the woods, and he falls into this 1,000-foot mine shaft that was mentioned earlier, right? That it's out there, and we need to find a way to get him out there. He chases him out there. He falls in, and then Jody pushes some rocks off the top of the hill, and then they all perfectly land in the hole. So I'm assuming this barricades the tall man into this deep ass hole. Then right after this, Mike wakes up in bed, still worried about the tall man. Then all of a sudden, Reggie, who was just stabbed dead, we thought, he's still alive, and just tells Mike that he had a nightmare and that Jody had died in a car wreck. and then let's go on a road trip to clear our minds. And then, and then when Mike goes into his room, the tall man appears in the mirror and says, "Boy," and then grabs a hold of him through the mirror and pulls him in. The end. So, what the fuck?
Boy.
Boy. So I guess we need to start right there with the ending as far as our comments in this little roundtable discussion here.
Yeah.
What the fuck? What did you
like? The whole thing was a dream? Was it? Was it a dream? No, it wasn't a dream.
Smoak.
It doesn't make any. The ending doesn't make.
Smoak.
Any
We're going to
sense.
lean on your vast horror knowledge of all things. So what the fuck did we just watch?
I think it's just left up to your interpretation of. Like I said, I don't know if that tuning fork thing, when he's looking through into another dimension or another universe where he's making these things and, out of dead bodies and to be slaves for whatever. But yeah, and then the ending where he pulls through the door and then that's it. And it's a fever dream. Is it really happening? Is he gone now, taking him to make him a dwarf too as well? I don't know. It's really kind of, it's probably also, Don Cascarelli probably thought this was it for Phantasm, He probably didn't think it was going to take off and be a huge cult film, that he'd be making Phantasm 2 and 3 and 4 and probably making Phantasm 5 or whatever. He probably didn't think it would be longevity.
And even at that, to be fair, it was 9 years later before Phantasm 2 came out. So yeah, I'm sure he thought this was it. One and done, take it as it is kind of thing.
Yeah. So that's why I think the ending is up to interpretation. It was probably supposed to end with this movie, just this one, and that was it.
If that's the case, then what the fuck did we watch there, though? What was that? So was Jody dead this whole time? Like, the entire movie? But because even at the end, the tall man falls down the hole, and then Jody's up on top of the hill and pushes the rocks over that kind of, encapsulate him in the hole or whatever. And then he just looks back up the hill, and Jody's like, yeah, thumbs up. But then all of a sudden he wakes up. Yeah, man, Jody died in a car accident. I was just sitting there like, what? Wait. Is there a whole...
Wait, was that while he was sleeping, or is
there
just none of that is explained?
No.
Just kind of left off.
That's why I'm left. What the fuck? What? That's all I can say is what the fuck? Because and we'll get into our star ratings here shortly. But for me personally, it takes it down a notch because I don't understand it at all. Maybe there's some deep, rooted shit going on here that is just above my head. I don't know, as far as that part is concerned, the ending. And I'm now, looking back on it, you have to assume that whole thread that we talked about earlier where Mike was kept following Jody around because he felt that Jody was going to leave him. Maybe that was the whole dream part of it, right? Jody's dead. So this is how he's dealing with it. He doesn't want Jody to leave him, kind of thing. So that's what leads me to believe that the whole movie was a fucking dream.
It could be, but
we don't get that. Well, and then we don't get that confirmation. So then I don't. I mean, we're talking about 1979. Nowadays movies do this a lot as far as them not giving you the entire plot and kind of leaving it up to you to interpret it, however. But back in 79, you definitely did not get that often. So I don't know if that was something Cascarelli was trying to do to make it just have an ending that left up to interpretation, or what? Because I've never heard him. I've never listened to any interview where he's explained the ending himself.
No, and honestly, he probably wouldn't, right? Because even if you ask him, I'm sure he's like most of these guys. So, I don't know. What did you think? They just turn it around on you or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Pull the old John Lennon on you, What do you think it meant?
One thing, not really about the ending at all, but who rides their fucking dirt bike through a cemetery? Why is nobody says anything to this kid? Yeah, don't do that, or you're kind of
no, there's no
desecrating.
There's no
just riding your dirt bike through and then also it breaks down or something happens every time he goes to the cemetery. So I don't know why he did it after the first time something happened to him.
Well, there's no grown-ass adults in this movie, really, if you think about it, What do we know at the end of this? That, most of the movie was probably a fucking dream, number one. Number two, he hangs out with his brother and his friend who clearly smoke dope and just play guitar all the time. At least that's the read I get on it. That's the read I get on the situation. And then when he's not hanging out with them, he's hanging out with this weird girl and her grandma that never says anything.
Oh yeah, she was giving off like Weekend at Bernie's vibes.
That whole weird scene, like, and they never come back into it. You figure they're coming back into it, right? Because like that scene, they're sitting there talking, and like clearly it's like the granddaughter or whatever is almost like listening to the grandmother psychically, telepathically.
No.
Because the grandma never says anything, but then when the kid leaves, they just laugh at They just laugh like, like we just fucked with him. But then they never pop back up.
I do have one explanation. I think that maybe will clear some of this up that I know about. I mean, I don't know if it's the excuse for all of it. Apparently, though, this movie was 3 hours long. The first cut of this movie was 3 hours long.
Yeah.
Oof.
And of course, you can't have that, and it also touched on a lot of different genres just besides horror. And like the Tall Man apparently didn't even come into the movie until a half hour into it.
Yeah.
This first 3 hour cut.
Mm-hmm.
And
I would love to see this as a country western.
Comedy and everybody's scenes got cut down. Some almost non-existent. So that maybe, I don't know, that could explain some of these things of like plot lines and characters that didn't go anywhere else besides that one scene, like the old lady.
I'm sure it does explain a lot. As much as I don't know if I'd want to sit through a 3 hour version of this, because I'm not saying this was dry or boring or anything, because it wasn't, but I don't know, a 3 hour version on it, that might be,
Yeah,
I
don't
know. But I think it would be worth seeing more.
People have looked for that cut or wondered about the 3 hour cut, but I think the stuff that was cut was gotten rid of. And
one thing I did read about that, and I read the same thing about the 3 hours. It was cut, and then they used some of the leftovers to make the framework for a sequel, and then the rest of the footage they didn't use was lost.
Now, I haven't seen the second one, but I did see something in the notes looking for stuff for this one, that apparently the second movie picks up almost immediately after this movie. So maybe that's what we need. Maybe I need to sit down and watch the second one to kind of get a grasp on this one a little bit more.
Yeah.
It's been too long for me to have remembered.
It's been a long time. There's so much.
Donny, I remember certain incidences from part 2 or certain scenes in my mind, but I don't remember how it linked to the.
Yeah, I don't know. It's been so long since I watched this. Like,
from what I understand, it picks up basically right from the end of this, and I'm sure Spookshow fans, some people listening to this, have seen that more recently and can say, yeah, this, and this, and maybe you can send us an email or send us a message over on any of the socials or anything to kind of maybe, if you have better explanations for some of this shit and how this ended, help us fill in some of the blanks here, because I don't know, I'm having a tough time with it.
One thing when, like, this was directly after the, I guess it was Tommy's funeral. It was like the two friends were talking. It was, it was Reggie and Jody.
Yeah.
They were talking, and they just said, well, say goodbye to Tommy. Yeah. It was just like so casual. Well, say.
It was very dismissive.
Yeah, I was like, oh, see ya. That's basically what it was.
Yeah. Yeah, and like we said off the beginning, there was sex. The sex with the lady in lavender twice in that cemetery in the first 20 minutes. I looked at the running time when it happened. Twice it happened in the first 20 minutes. She must be the best lay in town.
Well,
hey,
he
gets around.
Right?
The only other ladies that we know of in town is that old psychic grandma, right, and her granddaughter, and sure there's a couple others. Well, there's just two random girls at the end. There's two blonde-headed chicks like Sally and Susie or whatever the fuck their names were.
Yeah.
They just randomly like are involved, and all of a sudden they just fucking disappear. And then I think they write them out like, yeah, they got out. They're all right. So anyways, that reminds me when Jody and Mike come into the house at one point with Reggie. All of a sudden, this old black lady shows up, and she's like, where y'all been, or some shit. And I'm like, Jesus Christ. It scares the hell out of Reggie. Who is she, and where the fuck? She never shows up again. She's never mentioned.
She's just there.
Who is she? Where did she come from?
No, it's probably somewhere in the deep bowels of the the cutting room floor.
Well, they all knew. Yeah, I guess. I mean, that's the only thing that makes sense because like she
That's
shows
really
up like
the only, yeah.
Reggie gets scared like, oh shit, oh it's just you, Maud or whatever her name was, and then she never shows up again. She only has that one little line. They never mentioned her before that. I don't know. It's just another one of those weird.
There's another little strange occurrence. I don't want to say it's strange. It's just kind of odd. But when they were working on the car, you never see a toolbox. The kid just pulls a ratchet out of his pocket.
He just has whatever tools are on hand, and he just goes to work. Like he's got a wrench.
Yeah,
I think
MacGyver's
at one time
got a paper clip and whatever else.
I think at one time he gets under there and all he's got's a hammer. Like,
yeah,
who's fixing a car with a hammer?
Oh, yeah, because he bangs his brother's foot right when his
brother
hears him.
And that was weird. And that scene was
right there, and he thinks somebody else. He's bam. Yeah.
That scene was weird too, right? Because he's like the car falls on him, straight up falls on him.
Yeah,
it's on him. He's pinned to the ground, and then all of a sudden, bam! Hits his brother in the foot, and then he's out from underneath the car.
And there's you could see the jack, kind of like slip, and then it fell on him.
Yeah, it's on him. He's pinned under that car. He's just like, and then you see Jody's feet, and he just hits him. He's like, "Oh fuck, my foot!"
Yeah, and then he's out from under the car. The jack's nowhere to be found.
Yeah,
it's just it's.
Oh yeah. Speaking of the car too, well, like I said, I was going to talk about the car a little bit, but that scene of it being on a jack was apparently actual. I mean, maybe not that scene necessarily, but the fact that it was on a jack and people were working on it was something that happened a lot on the movie because it kept breaking down.
So as they're working on it, they're like, "Fuck, let's just film a scene." So based on what you just said, they might have had to write in the whole thing where Mike knows how to work on cars just because this thing is such a piece of shit. Like, well, fuck, now we need to write around it.
Yeah, it's a good looking car, and it was to go into that a little bit. Cascarelli had a friend in high school who had a Barracuda, and he loved the look of the car and sound of the car and everything, and he wanted one for the movie. So they found one some kid was selling because gas prices apparently gone up, insurance was going up on. So he wanted to get rid of it, and he bought it for like $2,500, and it was in running condition. I guess like I said, things would happen to it. It would break down. It would need some work done to it. If they had to cut that sunroof, there's a sunroof in it which wasn't part of the car. So the crew, whoever, made a makeshift sunroof, because later on, apparently, when the car was sitting on somebody's driveway for a while that worked on the movie, I can't remember which person, one of the crew members. Apparently, that sunroof wasn't a professional job, and it kept leaking and messing up the interior of the car later on. So. But yeah, for that scene where he's got to pop up out of the car, out of the sunroof, they needed to make one into it for that. And also I think on the hood it says 440 6-pack, which is meaning a 440 cubic inch, 3 2-barrel Holley carburetors or whatever is what according to the hood that's what was in the car. But apparently that wasn't really what was in the car. It was a 340. And then in the scene where they show him popping the hood and looking at it, you're like, oh, well, you don't get to see the engine, which I don't know if that was probably purposeful, maybe, so that they wouldn't have to explain later on, because, car nuts are going to be like, that's not a 440, that's a damn 340. What the hell are you talking about?
Yeah. Either that or there was no engine in it whatsoever, and they just kept Flintstoning it around town.
Yeah.
Apparently, though, that car was like, people were wondering what happened to it, and like I said, it sat on that guy's driveway for a while, one of the crew members, for a few years or so, and then I guess he got rid of it. Then it showed up in a Chips episode. And it was sitting in the background of a shot on like a car lot, like a used car lot. I don't know if it was an on location shot. I don't know if it was a studio / car lot, that it wasn't a real car lot, but just done for the set. But it was in the background of a shot. And then that was one of the last times it was seen. I think somebody said they had seen it in non-working condition, sitting in front of a gas station, probably just for looks,
wow,
because it's a pretty badass looking car.
Yeah.
And that was sometime back in the 80s as well, I believe, maybe early 90s. No, I think it was still in the 80s. And then after that, it just kind of disappeared. It hasn't shown up since.
And now it's propping up your coffee table in the west wing of the Smoak estate.
Yeah, when there was a time when Jody locked up Mike. You had mentioned, and he sticks a screwdriver or something in. But the way that the door swings inside his room.
Yeah.
Why would the screwdriver?
You'd easily be
from
able
the
to
fence-
just pull the door open, and the screwdriver would just fall out. It would, right? It wouldn't do anything.
Yeah, and how does he get out of his room?
Oh, that's the old hammer bullet trick. That's
yeah, it wasn't just a hammer bullet trick. It was a shotgun shell.
I'm pretty sure he'd blow his fucking hand off. Am I wrong here?
Oh, no doubt.
Yeah,
no doubt. Don Cascarelli actually commented about that. He said, "To this day, I just thank God that no." Now, this is his quote. To this day, I just thank God that no one ever tried to duplicate this.
Yeah.
Where I've never heard about it happening.
I was about to say it probably has.
Yeah. He says, I'm sure people have tried it. They just aren't around anymore to tell anyone where they learned about it.
Oh yeah, he just fucking. It's just like it just dawns on him like, hey, wait a minute, if I take this and this, and then he just takes pow, and this blows a perfect hole right beside the knob. Now, I don't know why the fuck you do it that way. Let's just say you do this and it works the way he did it. Why would you do it that way? Why not just hit the handle, right?
I didn't see any damage at all, though.
No, he did. He hit the door, and there was a hole right beside the doorknob, and he reaches his hand through the hole and opens the door.
I didn't know.
And then, like you said, the screwdriver just fucking falls out because he opened it from the other side and pushes the door in. Screwdriver's useless, just falls. And then the whole thing was convoluted. I guess you had to make it. Once again, you're MacGyvering up this kid. You're making it a point to say, like, this kid's crafty. He knows how to fix cars. He knows how to make bullet hammers. You know, he's a crafty fuck. You got to give him that.
Yeah.
Which is maybe why Jody wanted to keep leaving him everywhere. I don't know. That's some weird deep shit there with the whole ending, man. I don't know.
Talked about the the whole time they're fighting that demon caterpillar. I don't know what the hell to call it, but and the thing lunges at Mike, and he just accepts it. He's just like, well, okay.
Oh yeah.
He's a little too calm about it.
Yeah.
And
he's creepily calm about all this shit, like the whole thing with the psychic grandma and all that, right? Like, she's got a fucking magic box in front of him, and he's just perfectly accepting of this situation. Like, remember, like she's like, "Put your hand in the." Oh no, the old lady didn't say anything. The girl, like, put your hand in the box. No, it hurts. Like, no, it's all in your head. That whole scene.
But I do like how you gave the old lady without a voice. You gave her a voice. Put your.
Well, you have to imagine. You have to imagine if she did have any lines, it would be "Put your hand in the box." I don't know why she straight up sounds like Leprechaun. Lip in the hood, always up to no good.
But I guess the thing was on. I don't know. I guess it was Jody's. It was on Jody's neck, or something, and he literally takes that fucking gun and he shoots.
Oh yeah.
Behind his ear.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's just not only is it a weird angle, but I'm pretty sure he would have killed himself.
Oh,
like he's just like blind shooting a pistol right at his head.
Yeah.
Shoots the thing off the top of his head. And Smoak, did you get it that little caterpillar or whatever the fuck that was? It looked kind of like that thing from Trilogy of Terror, like that little.
Yeah.
That is a good point.
I put in the notes there, the geography and the layout of this movie is weird. I mean, we've kind of discussed that. Like, not just the way it was put together, but just the geography of things, like how people randomly appear. And maybe that's all part of the dreamscape type thing here going on, maybe that's what the fuck is going on. Like, Mike just popping up everywhere, even though he's supposed to be staying put. Jody randomly, that lady in lavender, just everybody just popping up left and right. And maybe that either that's added to the whole dream aspect of this thing, or maybe that's just the fact that there was a 3-hour cut. I don't know, but the way it was put together was just fucking weird.
So one thing I did, and I forgot to mention this earlier, the spheres. The spheres were actually they were designed by craftsman Willard Green, who died just after production wrapped, and Phantasm remains his only IMDb credit.
Wow.
I did forget to.
Even though they make no sense whatsoever, it's still a cool.
Oh yeah.
It's still a cool thing.
Yeah.
And outside of the tall man, Angus Scrimm, that's probably the one thing that people take out of Phantasm, right? Like, the one thing you're going to remember the most is those fucking flying spears. Not spears, but spheres.
I always wanted to make one for myself. I figured I'd just find me, one of those reflective Christmas balls.
Yeah.
Christmas balls.
Just make one yourself with an aluminum foil ball.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And then just yell Phantasm at everybody.
Foil blades, something. Yeah, some tinfoil blades.
Phantasm.
Maybe I'll make those for our next get together and we can throw them at each other.
Yeah. Then I was just about to say, the next time we all get together, somebody's getting hit in the head with a fucking aluminum ball saying Phantasm, and just we should do it to Will, because he's not on this episode and he'll never listen to it. You know, so like next time we see him, we just huck an aluminum ball at him and go, Phantasm! What the fuck, man?
Everybody else will get it. Just watch this episode.
Yeah.
But not Will.
Yeah. Maybe there needs to be some prank video we put up on the YouTube channel or something where we're just throwing aluminum balls at him and yelling Phantasm. So I guess that's really, unless you guys had something else to point out, that's really, I think we've...
I think we pretty much ran through it.
Yeah. We've done enough. But I'm still interested to see what everybody has to say about this. So, Donny, since this was your choice, and you usually lead anyway, so it happens to work out this way. This was your choice. So I'll toss it to you first. What's your star rating?
Oh, man. Star rating. I'm going to go into a little bit of why I'm rating it this way. The Tall Man. To me, one of the all-time great horror villains. I thought, there were some, obviously there's so much that doesn't really make sense. But I think, there's never really a dull moment because you always have questions, but, and also typically the first film of a franchise, which they didn't know that it was going to be a franchise at that time, but still, it's kind of slow and kind of builds the story a little bit typically. But I thought this was paced well. I love the practical effects, even though it wasn't terribly a whole lot of gore. But, the sphere prop original, I thought it was fresh. It was very cool. I always loved it. But, detractors, like I mentioned, there's not really there's so much of it that doesn't really make sense. I thought the Mike, just terrible acting. I know he's a kid, but no excuse. It's just the way he just accepts weird shit is just dumb. But still, I just thoroughly enjoy this movie. Still, I'm gonna give it 3 1/4.
All right, Smoak, what do you have to say?
Yeah, it's echo Donny's sentiments on it. It's one of those movies where if you're just coming into it fresh, brand new, and maybe never haven't seen it, and or only familiar with maybe newer horror movies and whatnot, you're probably not gonna like it. Because it's gonna come out of left field. But what the hell is going on here? It doesn't make. Some of these scenes don't make any sense. We've been talking about it. Maybe it's because it was a 3-hour cut and cut down to an hour and a half. Some of the scenes don't make sense, or maybe it was just that way from the beginning. It has a very surrealistic, dreamlike sequence. That I think is definitely on purpose, but it probably doesn't help the plotting of it much. So there's a whole lot of things that you could say are kind of going against this movie. The acting's of course not the best. I mean, it's low budget. I think it was Don Cascarelli's third film, his first horror movie. It's got a lot of things going against it, but despite all of that, and also one of the things we didn't mention is the soundtrack by, I believe, Fred Myro, and I can't remember the guy's first name. His last name is Seagrave, I believe. So 2 people on the score. The score is really memorable for sure. It sticks in your head, and it gives it that drive, that surrealistic sound to the things that are happening in the movie, and it definitely does stick in your head. But yeah, all the other things like I mentioned, there's a lot of things going against this movie, but for whatever reason, I think it's still a great movie, despite all the negatives that are maybe going against it. But for me, I'd go with I'll even go a little bit higher than Donny. I'll go with 3 1/2.
Myself, I just didn't love it as much as you guys did. I'm gonna go with 2 1/2, and mostly it's because to me you have to. I'm all cool for the surreal stuff. I'm all cool for a twist ending, but to me it's got to make sense, and like none of that leading up to that made you believe that this is what's happening, and then all of a sudden it's just like, bam, well, that was probably a dream sequence. I don't like the sneaky dream sequence shit, and that just goes with any movie or any TV show. Maybe I'm dumb. I don't know. You know, maybe you got to set it up better for me. I don't know. Maybe it's too highbrow or something, you know, that kind of thing. But like, when you just like hit me with that dream sequence shit, I'm like, okay, what the fuck? That means half this movie was a fraud. What was real and what wasn't? Now I got to go figure it out. Maybe it's clever because now it makes you want to watch it multiple times, and in that way they're selling a product. So you got to watch it, you know, again, and you know, and like I said, it took them 9 years to make a sequel, so it wasn't like they necessarily had that planned, you know. So I don't know. It's a fine movie. I think it's well done. Like you said, I think the pacing's pretty good. It's just that ending, man. It just took it down probably about a half a star for me. Because I was sitting there for the most part, I'm like, man, this is a solid 3 or so, you know, for me on my scale. And then that ending was just like, what the fuck? What? Wait a minute. Like, Jody's the one that's dead and Reggie's still alive. Then what the fuck did we just watch? Like, none of that made sense. Reggie was stabbed out by the lady in lavender, and then all of a sudden, let's go on a vacation. You need to clear your head for a couple weeks, you know? And then the old boy ending, you know, where he just leaps out of the mirror. Okay, that's fine, but like, I don't know. Maybe I'll look back on it when we do our 4th anniversary show, and I'll think a little differently, and I might re-rate it higher. I don't know. It's not that I hated it. It's just that ending was just like, what? Just it came too far out of the blue for me. There was no setup to that, and it didn't make any sense once you see it. Like, you can't go back and think like, oh, wait a minute, this makes sense because this, and this. It's just no, like, Jody was fucking dead the whole time, I guess. You know, like, whose funeral was that? Was that even, was it Tommy or whatever at the very beginning?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Too many questions, not enough answers. So for me, that knocks it down a peg. But, you know, I can see where you guys, I enjoyed it too for what it was. Just the ending kind of took some stuff away from me. And I will say I watched the remastered version. I'm assuming that's what y'all watched, because I watched it on Shudder this time. So it was the remastered version, like Bad Robot remastered it, J.J. Abrams had a hand in or something like that. The look of this was really good. Like, at least in this remastered version, like, it looked great. Looked way better than a movie made in 1979 for a $300,000 budget. That's for damn sure, you know, so kudos to them. And even I'm sure if I didn't watch a remastered version, I would probably say the same thing. Like, it looks great. There's no question about that. It's just that ending didn't make any damn sense to me. I need more explaining.
And I'll say this: none of what you said do I disagree with at all. It's all 100% spot on. But for whatever reason, and pretty much any other movie I can think of that would have this plot with so many unanswered questions and sort of, but like you said, sort of a somewhat cheapened dream sequence, whatever type thing, I would pretty much hate any other movie like that. But for whatever reason, I don't know what it is about Phantasm. It's elevated for me for some reason. I don't know.
Yeah, same.
Same
for me.
The uniqueness of it. I don't know.
And I completely sympathize and get that, because certain movies just strike the right chord, and you're going to be more forgiving of these type of things. This one, just for me, didn't strike the right chord for me to forgive it. So that's where I'll leave it for now. But we'll see. 4th anniversary show, maybe I'll have a different thought. Maybe I go watch the second Phantasm and certain things make more sense. Who knows? We'll see. We'll revisit that one day. But for now, that's where I'll lay. And it'll be interesting to see what Will has to say about it. But
yeah, I think it's an interesting wrinkle that, you know, I wouldn't say we're terribly divided on it.
No.
But it's, you know, just like kind of the differing ratings.
Yeah, we're coming on a different conclusion on this movie, I think. But until we get Will's, rating on that, I can't give you a total consensus yet. But, you know, so I'd say across the board there, it's fair. It's probably on average a little around 3 for all 3 of us there. So once we get his, we'll see where we're at. And of course, he usually does the kill count, so we'll get that the next time. But for now, we'll go ahead and toss to you, Donnie.
Connections from the crypt.
Gotta let it finish out.
I almost choked on the bullshit.
The only connection we have from maybe a surprise connection for both of you, Angus Scrimm was in Chopping Mall. He was Dr. Carrington, which is a forgettable character. I don't recall Dr. Carrington in Chopping Mall. Probably one of the, when they were doing the introduction of the Killbots. That's what I believe may have, where he may have.
Yeah, because like that, it would have to be in that first, like say 15, 20 minutes, because after the mall closed or whatever, I don't think they introduced any new characters. So
you never see.
I have to go back and have a closer magnifying glass on that.
But yeah, he's in as his real name, Lawrence Rory Guy. But yeah, Angus Scrimm goes back to Chopping Mall, which was in the Spookshow archives. I'll say I don't know what's
way back when.
Way back when.
Yeah, that was oh god, now you got me, because I almost had it just a second ago. Where the fuck was it? Because that was just last year, episode
57.
Yep, episode 57. Because that was just basically about this time last year, I think, when we did that, give or take. All right, so I'm gonna toss it to you, Smoak.
Gore score.
All right, so anybody who's been watching this for any length of time knows that the gore score comes from Chaz Balin's gore score back in the day. And he did rate Phantasm. But I'm going to tell you now, I'm going to end up deviating from what his score is. So his score, for some reason, Chaz gave it a 7. Seems a bit much for me. I mean, considering, like we talked about, there's not a ton. I mean, Phantasm is not a super gory movie. There's the one scene that everybody will remember that's seen it is the ball. Phantasm right in his head. Right in his head, you know, and then spurting blood out and everything. And then he didn't, like we said, he's laying on the floor, and then you see this puddle, like he pees himself. And then there's some other random, you know, the tall man gets his fingers chopped off, but he's not human. And it's like yellow for the blood or whatever, the squirting out, and then his caterpillar finger later. So, I mean, you could say, is that gory? I guess so, but it's not necessarily, you know, it's not your typical red blood spurting everywhere or whatever, but it's still gore, I guess. So, there's that, and little caterpillar scene later, and some other little bits of gore near the end.
Yeah, the stabbing. I guess the 2 stabbing scenes with the lady in lavender, right? That's, you know, a little bit.
They weren't too terribly splattery, you know.
No, but it's, you know, a little bit of blood. It's somebody got stabbed out, so that's there.
Yeah. I'm not going to deviate too far, I don't think. I'll go down to like a 6 on it. I'll give it a little bit less, just because I think I know we've given some things 7s before that were quite a bit gorier than Phantasm was. And but yeah, I think I'll go with a 6. Not deviating too far from Chaz's original one, but yeah, it's there, but it's not overly gory.
Oh, well, fair enough. So I guess next week, hopefully Will be back. We'll see. We'll just see how the scheduling stuff goes. He's a little busy right now, but we're going to be going back to the Cult Corner series, and we spun the wheel a couple weeks ago on Deadline Horror News, and we came to the conclusion that we were going to be watching The Big Lebowski from 1998. Now, this is one, I think when we first started talking about doing the Cult Corner series and just cult movies that were non-horror, this was one that like instantly came up. So I don't think it's going to be too much of a stretch to say this is one of all of our, favorite flicks of the 90s. I don't think that's a stretch. It stars Jeff Bridges, John Goodman, Julianne Moore, Steve Buscemi. There's John Turturro. There's a great cast, and of course, it's phenomenal. The Coen brothers directed it and wrote it, so you know it's quality shit. The synopsis on IMDb reads: Ultimate LA slacker Jeff the Dude Lebowski, mistaken for a millionaire of the same name, seeks restitution for a rug ruined by debt collectors. That's a nice way of putting it. Enlisting his bowling buddies for help while trying to find the millionaire's missing wife. So there we go. Big Lebowski is coming up next week on the Cult Corner. So we have a slightly different scale there, kind of like we do with Cannon Fodder, and and even comparing it to the horror movie. So like the only other Cult Corner movie we've done, I believe, was The Warriors, right? Like I think this is our first return. This is
the second because we started to one thing that you the listener may not know is instead of just kind of randomly choosing and selecting, we started to schedule these out. So we're in a rotation now, to where we have a horror movie, and then we may have a spotlight, or And then it's more of a rotation now.
Yeah, we'll always do the horror reviews every 2 weeks. That's our bread and butter. That's what we've done since day one, and we will continue to do that. But in between, we're going to rotate between Spookshow Spotlights, Cannon Fodder, and Cult Corner. And then, of course, we've got our stuff over on Patreon. It's kind of the little side hustle, so to speak. That's the bonus content. But that's our main rotation. So now it's the wheel spins us back around the Cult Corner finally. So. And like he said or alluded to there, it's going to be more regularity where you're going to see these Cult Corner and Cannon Fodders come into play. So that's what's coming up next week. And then looking ahead to after that, episode 107, it's our next horror review. And Smoak, it's your choice. I don't know if I'm putting you on the spotlight here or not. Now, you get to pick a new release because, our old criteria of new or old is anything from 1999 back. New is from 2000 to present. And in the rotation, it's your turn, and you get to pick a new movie. So if you've got one, you can go ahead. If not, we can do it another time if you're not ready. But if you're ready to make your choice, you can go ahead and announce it.
Yeah, this is the one that, and it's funny because it fell in my rotation as the new movie. I'm like, damn, new movie.
Yeah, same here.
Just because, like my forte and everything in my love is for these older horror movies and stuff. Doesn't mean that I hate new movies.
Yeah.
Like how can I think of a new one that's like, but then something instantly popped in my head. I'm like, this is one that I think it may have mentioned it before on the podcast in some past episodes that, we need to do this one at some point. Maybe we'll do this one. So this is a good time for me to throw this one in here. And I don't know if any of y'all have seen this. I can't remember. Like I said, I'm pretty sure I mentioned it, but I don't know if y'all ever told me if you've seen it or not. But 2001 movie called Session 9.
Yes, I have seen it. Yes, that's great pick, Smoak.
Yeah, that was one that it had slipped my mind for a while, and I was trying. It took me a while to rack my brain and think, what's a good new movie? I mean, there was plenty of titles that I was mulling over and whatnot. But then I landed on this one. I remembered, and then I had to look it up to make sure it was still actually a new movie and not 1999 because I couldn't remember the exact date. So, and it did make it in 2001.
yeah.
But have you seen it, Joe?
I don't believe I have. I just looked it up here just to get a look at the poster or anything so I can see if I have it. I don't think I have. But now that I've got it pulled up, like you said, it came out. I'm sorry, it was released in 2001. But I'll go ahead and read the IMDb synopsis. Tensions rise within an asbestos cleaning crew as they work in an abandoned mental hospital with a horrific past that seems to be coming back. So it looks and sounds, looking at the poster, and it sounds interesting. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, you can actually you can stream it on AMC Plus, Amazon, and Prime Video, I guess. But yeah.
Oh, good. That's something I forgot to check. If it was even available.
So yeah, it turns out you own the only VHS copy, so we'll have to borrow it from you.
Yeah.
Well, good. That sounds awesome, man. Mixing it up with something that I'm pretty sure I haven't seen it. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say Will hasn't seen it. So yeah, that sounds like a solid pick.
Yeah, I do recall this one. Yeah, this
was. How long has it been, Donny? Been a while.
It's been a few years. I've seen it once, and I vividly remember this. Yeah.
So there you go. That'll be coming up in 2 weeks here on the podcast feed. But next week we've got episode 106, Cult Corner of the Big Lebowski, before we get to session 9. So, and then don't forget, coming up, we'll talk more and more about this as now that we're entering the month of May here pretty soon, or next week, I should say. We enter the month of May, and once we get through the month of May, probably mid-May, late May, we're going to start announcing specific plans for what we've got going on this summer. We mentioned it last week, so I'll mention it again. We're going to be doing Camp Spookshow, where everything we do throughout the summer is going to be summer camp related, or summer related movies and themes and everything. That's going to be the running thing that will probably start towards the beginning of June if everything goes to plan. I think we're aiming for episode 111 on June 6th to start that out. So we'll let you know more and more about the plans as we get closer, but hey, it'll be here before you know it, man. Like I said, next week we're in May, and then all of a sudden a few episodes, and then bam, we'll be right in the heart of Camp Spookshow. So go ahead and saddle up and get ready. So we got some cool stuff planned that'll kind of get us through the summer, and then of course we always start ramping up for the month of October because that's one of the main events that we have here is all horror all the time, especially once we get to October. So
Yeah.
Big plans ahead. Big plans. So you don't want to miss a thing. And then, of course, go over to patreon.com/Spookshow for all the bonus content. Go down the link tree in the show notes for all the other things. And I guess that's it, guys. So for Will, who couldn't be with us, Donnie, the Professor Smoak, I'm Josh. We are the All-American Spook Show podcast, and we will talk to you next week.
And now, folks, it's time to say goodnight. We sincerely appreciate your patronage and hope we've succeeded in bringing you an enjoyable evening of entertainment. Please drive home carefully and come back again soon. Good night.